I'm not here to lecture anybody. I'm not here to try to guilt you because that doesn't work. And I'm definitely not here to repeat a story that you've seen all over your timeline. I just want to share the part that I think most people are missing. The part beneath the screaming, beneath the panic, beneath the chaos. Because what you saw wasn't just a woman in labor, right? It was a Black mother watching her daughter fall into a kind of pain that makes you afraid to breathe and realizing that she had no power to protect her. That's the part that I want to talk about. She heard her child calling out for help, the kind of help that family can't give, only medical staff can provide, right? And they would not move to help her baby. Her daughter told that lady over and over her due date. They told them that they were scheduled for an induction. They were told that an induction couldn't happen because they didn't have beds. Her water was already broken. She was asking for an anesthesiologist. And the nurse still said, "I can't help you," after ignoring her pain. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. It was a Black woman in crisis being dismissed in real time. It was the exact same script they used in Jim Crow maternity wards that our grandmothers survived. Back then, Black women were placed in basement hallways, made to wait until the white patients were taken care of, sometimes giving birth on stretchers because nobody came. That history didn't disappear, it evolved. And it showed up again, in that lobby, in that hospital, with that nurse. And that mother wasn't filming for shock value, she was filming out of fear. She pulled up to the hospital with her daughter actively laboring in her car. And they told her to drive around the building to another entrance instead of just taking her at the ER. And when she asked for help getting her daughter out of the car after she drove around, the staff refused. They didn't help her. It was a police officer, not a hospital employee, a police officer who offered to help. And then she had to choose quickly between parking the car or staying with her child. She parked the car, but she sprinted back inside and found her daughter hunched over in a wheelchair screaming that her baby was coming. Paperwork shoved in her hand like she wasn't in active labor. This wasn't normal. This wasn't safe. This was not care, okay? And here's the quiet part a lot of Black families carry. They knew they couldn't demand anything, not the way other families could. Because we've all seen what happens when Black families in hospitals get labeled aggressive. Security comes before compassion, escalation before assistance. And that's not a modern phenomenon either. In Jim Crow maternity wards, Black mothers who raised their voices were punished. They were ignored harder, denied medication, potentially arrested. And today, that punishment just looks more professional, I guess. So that mother stayed calm out of survival. Not because the situation was under control, because this is what it looks like when fear and helplessness collide. Imagine watching your daughter's body fold in on itself, her voice breaking, her hands shaking, her body convulsing. Every instinct in your body would tell you to fight for her, right? But you also know that fighting could put her in more danger. That's not confusion, that's not drama. That's a moment that Black families know all too well. The moment where your love can't shield someone that you would die for. It's the same moment that Black mothers faced in segregated hospital wings, where babies died on waiting room floors because no one came fast enough. That's the legacy that we're watching in real time. Black women don't walk into labor thinking about baby names and playlists. We walk in hoping that the hospital staff will believe us quickly enough to keep us alive. That mother wasn't upset because things were chaotic. She was upset because she knows how quickly situations like this can turn fatal. And she needed the world to see what was happening in case her daughter couldn't speak for herself later. She filmed because the stakes were life and death. She filmed because she had to. She filmed because too many Black women don't make it home from situations like this. And that's the part that nobody wants to sit with. That is the reality of being Black in America.
What exactly did you catch when you were watching that viral video of a woman 12 minutes out from giving birth dealing with this redheaded nurse? Did it remind you of your mother in law? Did it remind you about being a fancy Black person, maybe shopping for something, having an accent in the wrong place? Do you think you can spot when someone checks their social status against yours? Let's process it and the feeling of powerlessness and anger that you had watching that video together. So, the now infamous Dallas Regional Medical Center, a young black woman has come in because she is about to give birth. She's actively in labor. The nurse knows this. The universal medical standard of care is that this woman would have been rushed to labor and delivery where she could be monitored. Whatever extra details that they needed to get could have been taken from the person who was accompanying her along the way. And this mother in particular had apparently already sent her information ahead. She had established care at this hospital. Here she is, wailing in pain, going nowhere as the nurse stalls. There was zero sense of urgency, and there was absolutely no patient assurance. The nurse keeps mother and baby in the intake room. Now, we could say nurses are used to pain. They've seen hundreds of births. They're not going to freak out, as one might say. But we're not talking about freaking out here. We're talking about someone who knows that the person in front of them has not lived through hundreds of births and who is in pain and in need of medical attention. The nurse is very aware that this woman is frightened and in pain and is about to do one of the hardest things any human being can ever do. And she shows, literally no exaggeration, you could go watch the video, zero empathy or concern or any reaction to the black lady's pain. And what this medical professional is aware of with every minute that she waits is that she's putting the mother and baby at risk of something being missed. She's keeping this woman from the chance to be monitored. She is slowing down and preventing the process for any pain relief or oversight to get in place. If there's an emergency happening, which she can't know in the intake room because, again, no one is monitoring her, these couple of seconds or minutes can be the difference between life or death for the mother and child. On top of the unnecessary delay, the lack of connection and concern being shown here is absolutely adding to the patient's stress, which is also stressing the baby that's about to be born. That stress on a person's nervous system has a weathering effect that can make them more likely to die. The family has reported back that the baby did have complications during and after the birth. The nurse failed to do her job, and she did it in the grand tradition of nurses using their position of power to status check people. This is one more link in the long chain of maternal health crises for Black and Indigenous women in America, not because of their class, not because of other comorbidities, not because of issues they've had with childbirth before, but because of medical negligence and racism. Lack of response is a form of weaponized negligence that looks at a Black woman and goes, she can take it, she's tough. We could also say we saw here malicious compliance, where somebody uses the cover of the process to delay having to service or care for you. They're policing you or punishing you for daring to even come here and ask for services and resources in the first place. People walk around with this idea of who they are and what their space looks like. And when you come into their space as a Black person or a fancy Black person or somebody who needs them to take care of them, there's a level of thinking that I'm too good to be taking care of this person. I am too good in this situation, this store, this shoe, this bag, whatever it is. It's too good for the people who are asking for these services. So I'm going to make it expensive for them to be here. So they use their jobs to covertly assert dominance. They argue, you can't buy this item at the listed price, you must be wrong. They move slowly and they intentionally do not give you the same customer service that they would give everybody else, or in this case, bedside manner. Well, maybe people are having a bad day or they're bad at their job. Here's how most people operate in a society. They are walking around with an internal story of who they are and who other people are. They also have a social hierarchy in their mind. We humans rely on a lot of visual shorthand to fill in ideas about what we're seeing in front of us or who we're seeing in front of us. Our internal hierarchy, that is developed over time by our culture, the people who raised us, the social circles we're in, or the media we consume. History is not just about events that took place, but the cultural memory that developed around them, the meaning and significance we have given to the things that have happened, and the norms we have normalized. You can thank Harriet Washington and her brilliant team for coming up with a comprehensive medical history of America. It's called Medical Apartheid. It explains how a place like the Dallas Regional Medical Center can hire someone like that and think that they don't have a problem. What we learn is that the entire birth and foundation for medical gynecology in America is through and because of enslaved Black female bodies. So many of the quick advancements in gynecology happened because you didn't need to ask for consent on women that you purchased and enslaved. You don't have to waste money on anesthesia or finding new people to keep testing this on because you can just keep testing on the same people you own. It wasn't just Black women. It was a way to continue to make money off of enslaved people who could no longer be squeezed for profit. So if you had someone who'd been injured because of your abusive work tactics, you could sell them for experimentation. This was normal. This is just like a really cruel, bad chapter in a tiny section of American medical history. No, it was its foundation. And it wasn't 4 years before the Civil War and just a couple years after. It was multiple generations. To this day, there are people and families that are bearing the scars of recent decades of medical experimentation and unethical access to Black bodies, people that were tricked. White bodies and white mothers were considered and classed as people who felt more pain and were much more delicate. To this day, there are young medical students right now running around with myths and assumptions and biases about Black skin thickness and pain reception. There are a lot of assumptions about what makes a Black person sick. And then we're also dealing with a situation where it's considered bad or woke to look at the interlocking factors that could affect why someone is in the situation that they're in, like ecological racism or pollution. The wider American culture at the time excused and hid this, and currently continues to excuse and hide this. Why do you think certain things are getting defunded? This is why, with the same money, same healthcare, same hospital, a Black woman could walk into the same situation as a white woman and be 3 times more likely to die giving birth. It's not about genetics, it's about negligence. This slow-moving, dismissive care is procedural violence. Additionally, because enslavement was the economic power engine that could make the American economy the superpower it was, it depended on producing more enslaved people, which meant taking away, and never giving, I should say, reproductive freedom to Black women. To keep it profitable and to keep it cheap, you weren't necessarily worried about the maternal health conditions. You weren't necessarily looking over all of the labor and delivery. This is a huge part of why bodily autonomy is not the state's default position towards women or Black women. It's simply not profitable. So you have this huge group of people that's stewing in old ideas and new recycled ones about how it's Black and brown people who are lazy and taking their resources. It's immigrants who are the reason why there's a housing crisis. There's an infestation of certain kinds of people. Do you think that when those women walk in to give birth, that people are going to necessarily treat them with respect and dignity? Tough and aggressive people who have too many kids, they're not going to get top care. Racism, long after it's used to be a social technology that produces a certain caste system, it becomes an internal form of narcissism, a way to stroke your ego. This white nurse was not going to be seen rushing to take care of a Black lady. Did that Black baby matter with the way she was acting? No. Did that lady's pain matter? Also no. She used, as many people have, her standing to check the other person. It was cruel, it was deliberate, and it was calculated. We tend to think that racist action, sexist action, people who are not welcoming you into their family, that they will announce it, that they will put on a hood, that they will say, I am saying a racist or mean thing, or you are less than me. We tend to think that unless they fully admit right there that I am doing this because I'm racist, that maybe it isn't. But it's not politically or socially expedient to telegraph status in a way that you could get caught. Because the point of this kind of behavior is not to be heard saying it. It is to get a certain outcome, to make you feel a certain way. How do we push back? We articulate what is happening to us. Because like James Baldwin said, once we articulate the situation, we're no longer the victim. We're a threat to that system. We support each other with doulas, birth funds, and looking for ways to fund community scholarships. We do what this grandmother did, which is film and share the story. Nurses at the Dallas Regional Medical Center and beyond might continue to see Black women as pests and problems. We know, like Lucy, Betsy, and Anakra, who are memorialized here, that Black women's bodies were the sites of so many solutions. This profession owes so much to the unimaginable horror and pain that those women endured. People who are watching their research be rolled back, people who have lost their mothers and their wives and their sisters and just human beings to this crisis know that there's no real moving on from this. But there is moving forward with an awareness of what came before us. What increased digital power we now have to call this out and hold people accountable. The ways we can come together to spot and articulate this behavior in all the different ways it occurs and call it what it is. To the Dallas Regional Medical Center, you have a nurse that is too dangerous to be around Black women. To the rest of us, get Harriet Washington's book and don't be afraid to stay woke. It could literally save your life.
Hey, Sparkles family, welcome back. And before we jump into anything today, I just want to pause and say this. Thank you. Thank you to every single viewers who hasn't given up on this channel, who still stick in, still engaged, still supports the work even when uploads slow down or topics get heavy. The loyalty does not go unnoticed. I truly appreciate you. And as always, credit goes out to the originators of this video and to every single creators who stitched, duetted, analyzed, and expanded on this story. This conversation exists today because they took the time to capture, document, and break down what happened. My commentary is simply a reflection of the perspective they shared. Let's dive into the rest of this video.
Fuck! When's your due date?
Whatever you're doing right now, I need you to stop and watch this video.
Fuck! When's your due date? Ah! Right now!
So you don't have to be an OBGYN. You don't have to have any medical knowledge to know that this woman is in distress.
Is your due date 11?
For those primal screams, not to invoke an ounce of humanity. Think about that.
What? How many times have you been pregnant?
Seriously, who gives a fuck? The baby's coming.
3! This is your 3rd pregnancy? Yes! You have 2 babies. It's in my ass!
3rd baby, it's in my ass, means she's gonna have a baby on the floor unless she gets that woman to a room now.
You have 2 babies at home? Who's your doctor?
Lang is her doctor.
Let's talk about this Dallas video because it's not just bad behavior, it's dangerous, it's discriminatory, and it's why black women in this country keep dying. The young woman's in active labor, and clinically we all know that priorities shift. Intake stops, and your eyes should be on that mom and the baby. But instead, we're watching a nurse sit there asking frivolous questions while a black woman is clearly in distress, progressing, and not treated with the urgency and dignity that she deserves. It's not just rude, it's dangerous. It's egregious, and it's actually disgusting medical care. And I need y'all to understand something, that as a black OBGYN, this is not an isolated incident. This is a culture. And this is what happens when a healthcare system that is not designed for anyone outside the majority, this is how it affects and shapes the legacy and how black women are treated in real time. This is our maternal mortality numbers. This is how black women end up ignored, undiagnosed, untreated, and unprotected. It's a bias, it's systematic, and it's behavior like this that gets passed down, normalized, excused. This is a culture problem in Dallas, Texas probably as a whole. And a culture doesn't change with a press release. It changes with accountability, retraining, leadership, consequences, and a refusal to let people like this touch patients. So, in closing, black women deserve urgency, compassion, and clinical excellence. This ain't it. What we saw was unacceptable, and it's time that the healthcare system finally stops pretending that this doesn't happen. You need to do better.
If you are someone who takes care of human beings in a healthcare environment, I need you to listen the hell up. I just watched another video of a black woman being dismissed in active labor and having a baby 8 minutes later. It is disgusting to watch, but finally people are paying attention. This is an article that was written 2.5 years ago. I talked about how if you are a nurse who says shit like, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, I treat all my patients equally, that you are part of the problem. You are actively contributing to harm because your passive silence is active violence. So you might not be the nurse that does the side eye to a laboring black woman, but you won't be the person to speak up when something is wrong. You'll be the nurse just following doctor's orders, just pushing the patient to the car. But if you are the kind of nurse who cannot recognize that a patient's skin color, one of the most obvious things about them, puts them at a 3 times greater risk of death, what are we doing? I'm going to explain to you why equality should never be a goal in healthcare. Our goal should be equity. I'm going to use a photo that's often used to explain this, but I'm going to explain why it doesn't work on our scenario and give you a better example. So this is what equity means, okay? We're not giving everyone the exact same thing, because giving everyone the exact same thing will still end with people having bad outcomes. We have to recognize the specific needs of our patient and give them exactly what they need to be successful, or to live, or to not be traumatized when they come into a hospital. Here's why this doesn't work when we're talking about Black women. This puts the problem or the onus within the body of that person. So I do presentations for nurses and talk about the importance of speaking up when it might feel scary to protect our patients from birth trauma, harm, or death. And in this presentation, I made this graphic, which shows two equally heighted women in two different environments in the same place. This woman's ancestors were enslaved women who were experimented on by a monster named James Marion Sims and called it gynecology, given procedures without anesthesia because they thought Black women could not feel pain. Even in my nursing books, in the culture section, it talked about how Black women have a higher pain tolerance. In order to improve outcomes for this patient, we have to either repair the ground underneath her or move her to a safer location. We have to change her environment. And when it comes to birth, there's a lot of well-meaning advocates who say, this is why you should have a home birth. No, that should never have to be the answer. We have to make birthing in a hospital while Black safer. And it starts by treating your Black patients differently. Stop being personally offended if they don't inherently trust you because you're wearing a badge and scrubs, because they've likely experienced mistreatment from someone who looks an awful lot like you. It's why my 9-year-old doesn't fuck with bees. He got stung by a bee, and even though there are going to be millions of bees who don't sting him, he will never trust a bee. And I don't blame him, because every bee has the opportunity to hurt him. We know that Black women are less likely to be listened to, so knowing that, how would you approach a patient who you knew was at a higher risk of not being listened to? Would you pull up a stool and hang on every word she says? Would you make a promise to listen to her? Would you echo her wants and desires louder to the other people on the care team? Would you act immediately if she says something is wrong? Or would you brush it off and say you're fine? But most importantly, are you willing to speak up against your coworkers, against people you may consider to be your friends, when something is not right? If even half of the healthcare workers in this country made a pact to never allow this type of behavior to exist in our orbit, we could make things better. But it counts on you holding up your end of the deal, to treat your Black patients differently, to never be silent in the face of injustice, and to always be on the lookout for ways that you can help your patients feel heard.
So the more I think about this situation that happened with the young Black mom that was in active labor, and the nurse just blatantly ignored her, it just pisses me off. And I want to say this to Black families, Black mothers, Black women. We can't choose a lot of things that are happening in this country. But one of the things that we can do is choose the providers, the healthcare providers we have. Even though it may not be convenient, every single healthcare provider that my family goes to is Black. Baby, down to the dermatologist, the optometrist, the OBGYN, my family practitioner, the dentist, the chiropractor, the physical therapist, everybody Black. And it has taken some work. It's not easy because I've had to search these people out, right? There are not a lot of Black dermatologists in the area where I live. I was on the waiting list to see a dermatologist for about 8 months because that's how booked she was. But that's okay. I waited. The medical spa that I go to for my facials, Black. My nail tech, Black. Any kind of extra service I need, they Black. Plumber, electrician, I don't care what it is. Someone to detail our cars, Black. 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 So the things that we have control over, that we can hire our own, have Black healthcare providers, We need to do that. Some of us are way too trusting. Well, they supposed to. It's the law. Since when these people start following the law? Look at what this lady was doing, and she was being recorded because she didn't think she was going to have any repercussions. And she may not have had any repercussions if there was not a TikTok or social media. They don't give a shit about being recorded. So the things that we do have control over, baby, we need to be subscribing to Black folks, Black folks, Black folks. We got to stop being so trusting and stop giving our money to these people that don't give a shit about us. Now, does that mean that all kinfolks are skinfolk? We already know it may be issues. It may be with your Black providers. I have changed Black dentists because the one Black dentist I didn't agree with. I moved to another one. No biggie. But nowhere did I post. I see that's why I don't go to Black, blah, 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 blah. It's some goods and some bads, but I'd rather take my chances with a Black provider any day. Yeah. I had my son via C-section, and the amount of care that my Black OBGYN gave me, chef's kiss. I have a very minimal scar, and everything that she did to ensure my health was so that I would be intact. My body would be intact, and I would have the least amount of trauma to my body. I can't say the same if I had a white provider, because I've heard some stories. What we have control over, we need to control. All right, y'all. Happy Black History 365. And I'll see you next time.
Welcome back, Sparkles family. A Black woman in active labor was ignored, not overlooked, not delayed, ignored. And the stitches I want to highlight today make it painfully clear. She wasn't just a patient in labor. She was a daughter with a mother standing right beside her, watching her fall into a level of pain that makes your breath catch in your throat. The stitches creator said, "I'm not here to lecture anybody. I just want to share the parts most people are missing." And they are right. Because breathing the screaming, breathing the panic, beneath the chaos in that hospital lobby, there was a mother trying to hold herself together while realizing she had no power to protect her child. That is the part we don't talk about enough. Let's walk into what actually happened. This woman told the staff her due date, told them she was scheduled for an induction, told them her water has broken, told them she needed she told them she was in active labor, and the nurse still refused to help her. You don't need medical training to know that is dangerous. Her body was literally telling them the baby is coming, and instead of care, what she got was protocol weaponized as a barrier. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a busy day. This was a Black woman being dismissed in real time. And as the stitches creators pointed out, this is not new. This is part of a long, ugly lineage that many people pretended ended decades ago. The stitches creators complain it's to be the same script used in Jimmy Crow maternity ward. Black women forced to wait until white patients were taken care of. Black women laboring in hallway. Black women giving birth on stretchers because no one came fast enough. Nobody wants to talk about how the history did not disappear. It's involved. We are watching the updated version of the same old system. And the Stitches creator said something that hits me hard. The mother wasn't filming for drama. She was filming out of fear. Fear that her daughter wouldn't believed. Fear that her pain wouldn't be taken seriously. Fear that she may not survive the experience. Because when she pulled up to the ER with her daughter, bent over in pain, they did not rush to help. They told her to drive around the building. When she asked for help getting her daughter out of the car, the staff refused. A police officer, not a nurse, not a doctor, was the only one who offered assistance. Imagine that. She stayed calm, not because she wasn't terrified, not because things were under control, but because Black families knows what happens when you are labeled aggressive in a hospital. The Stitches creator said it perfectly. Security shows up before compassion. Escalation before assistance. That is not paranoid. That is lived reality. So imagine standing there, your daughter's body collapsing in pain, knowing that raising your voice, raising an alarm could make things worse. That is the moment many Black families know far too well. The moments where loved cannot shield the person you will do anything to protect. It's not just the medical legacy itself, it's the legacy of it. Black women don't enter maternity ward thinking about playlist or pretty robes. They enter hoping the staff will believe them quickly enough to keep them alive. This mother filmed because she needed evidence. Because if something happened to her daughter, if her daughter collapsed, if her daughter went unconscious, if her daughter did not survive, she wanted proof of the neglect. She filmed to protect her child in the only way she could, and that is the part a lot of people want to ignore. Black women are still dying in pregnancy and childbirth at rates that should shock any country calling itself advanced. This wasn't an incident. This was a symptom of a system. And that system is failing Black women every single day. What we saw was not overreaction. It wasn't drama. It wasn't chaos. It was the modern version of an old story, a story that Black families have been surviving for generations. And the Stitches creators end with a reality. We keep trying to pretend away. That is not aggression. That is America. If you are watching this today, thank you again for standing with this channel, for listening, for caring, and for supporting conversations that aren't enough but are necessary. This is Sparkle's show, and I will see you in the next commentary.